Is he? Because I don't see him. Hello. Oh. Otherwise, he would be left out. Hello, AJ. Shivani admitted you because I didn't realize that I had to admit you. Hey, Michael.
You must have done it last time.
I don't remember. Last time, I think he just automatically joined. All right, welcome. I think it's just you and me again. So here I am. Oh, I see you have a helper.
Yeah, North a good helper. North.
Yes, my helper's over on the couch snoozing. so much for that. Anyway, well, I have everything set up. Let me just show you. You probably do too, but the this is the food processor that I like to use, which is a KitchenAid. And then I've set everything out here. I typically like to do this just to facilitate the ease of all of it. And I have a couple of these small bowls because sometimes it's nice. I will use one for the nuts after I grind them up, and the other, and then the leftover ones, and then the other will be maybe to mix the spices in. We'll see how that goes. It just depends. So this particular recipe has been around for quite a while, and I really like it. You can find different ones if you look them and do a search, and you'll see variations. But this really works well, I think. And it is nice because all of the tastes are there. Whether you want to talk Chinese medicine or Indian medicine, they're all there. And it's so comprehensive because it works with the qi or the prana. I mean, we don't have prana, but let's put it this way: qi from a Chinese standpoint, and we will use ojas from an Indian standpoint. and then the blood as well. And then all of the organs are affected through this particular, we'll call it, I was calling it a morsel, but it is, so many people treat it as a dessert, but it's also so nice, as I mentioned last time, to have a little bit of sweet at the beginning of a meal, because it helps to stimulate the saliva and the digestive enzymes in the mouth. And then when it works its way down to the stomach, then that's when the bitter comes in. I mentioned that last time, and this actually has some bitter items in it as well. So the ingredients, we've got this 1 cup of raw almonds, and I prefer to buy the bag that has them already broken up a bit. You can get them without the covering on it. So from an Indian standpoint, sometimes they say, well, it's best to not have the piece on it because that has a bit of toxins in it, utilized to keep insects from eating them, because it is a seed to grow into another tree. So they soak them, and then they peel them off. And you can get the ones that are removed, but I tend to like the texture of having it in there, and I feel like I'm not eating enough, so I don't really have to worry about it. So, again, if one had a sensitivity, then one could keep that in mind. But in this particular case, I've chosen to get the sliced ones. And I'm going to just measure out the cup right now because I like to go kind of in order. And this is the first step. So why not? If you want to do it along with me. And as I put at the top, total time for this, from kind of assuming you already have the ingredients and you didn't have to go shopping, is about 25 minutes. It could even be a little less, just depending upon what's going on. So you can get your cup and, oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing a little laundry, but now that's done. So I wanted to make sure that was off before. And I didn't even think about it in the background. But thankfully, it is no longer doing its thing. So down the hall, go away. All right. So the almonds now, I have put them into my measuring cup. So the first, an easy step, right? So as you do that, then if you have your food processor nearby, then just checking to make sure that it's plugged in and that the blade is pushed down, as I just checked.
Now, you say you're doing a food processor. Does it have is it the chopping blades or is it the blender blades?
I use the chopping blade. So I want to mix it all together, and I have different blades. So this is the one that looks like a cyclone.
Okay.
A representation of that. I know we have others underneath.
Okay, I found mine.
Okay, good. So so just if you put it together, so then what I typically do is I've measured out the nuts, and now I'm going to put them into the food processor. And so again, very straightforward. Then I have my measuring spoons handy. Typically, I make sure that I have the size I want. I prefer round ones, but seemingly for my half teaspoon right now, I have a rectangular one to use. So anyway, enough of that. So we have the spices, right? Ginger, cardamom powder. So we'll first start with the ginger. It doesn't really matter what order, but it's ground ginger powder. So it's a little more spicy. And then I put it in with the almonds.
How much ginger?
So a half teaspoon.
Half teaspoon. Okay.
And then you will do the same, a half teaspoon of the cardamom powder. So the sheet that you will get will have all the specifics about the ingredients as it relates to the different systems in the body, as it relates to the tastes and that. And we can maybe touch upon those as we go through this. So we put the ginger and the cardamom into the nut mix. And now a little pinch. And remember last time I said it was between a 16th and an 8th. So a pinch of Himalayan sea salt. So I like Himalayan sea salt, and this might be a good point to say, well, why should we use Himalayan sea salt instead of just regular sea salt? And so, again, Just a nice little pinch or two. Well, the Himalayan sea salt is so rich in minerals, and it's easily absorbable and are assimilated into the body. It's pure because it's so old. It's before we had all this pollution and everything. So we're bringing something in that is so significant, rich in minerals, more than 84 minerals in Himalayan sea salt. So it also has an element to help you get rid of your bacteria, which is quite nice to support the digestive tract that way too. And yes, and then affecting other organs, the heart, for instance, and the digestive system, and of course being salt. So we can think about our body is made up of water. Salt is so important for the electrical current to flow through us. If we don't have enough salt, then that becomes damaged and interferes with our operation. So we've now put the pinch of the salt in and the cardamom and the ginger. So now what we suggest is that we put the lid on the food processor, and we're just going to, I like to pulse it. I don't like to just keep it steady, but you know, again, you can decide. The thing is, you have to be careful here not to turn it into flour. And sometimes, especially with the almonds already sliced, it can go pretty quick. So it's a little noisy. I like to have texture, so I like it to be a little bit of, you know, a little coarse and a little grainy. But you know, let's just do it for a moment and see what happens. It's breaking up nicely now. I haven't really done it that long, and I think this is probably where I'm going to, maybe one more. Okay, that's good enough for me. I don't want to, I start to see some of the powdery stuff forming, and I just say, oh, that's too much. But there's still nice texture here. So what I'm going to do now is I want to remove, and again, you can decide, do you want to unplug your food processor? Probably wise. It is off, but just momentarily, I like to be safe. So I'm going to unplug it before I pull the blade out, because I'm going to empty this into another container. So here I go, undoing it, bringing it over, and I'm going to use a bowl now, and I'm just going to empty it into the bowl. Now the reason for this is because we're going to mix the other items next. And we will add this back in a little while. So here I've put it into this bowl, just using a nice ceramic bowl, if you do a glass bowl, whatever works for you. And I will put the blade back on again. No need to wipe out the inside because it's all going to go back together. So it's just a point. And then I will plug it back in. Maybe. There we go. So you see me disappear. I have it like vanished, but anyhow. So for our next thing, so I've just set this aside now. Now we have the next ingredients. We want to think about this. We have the dates. So maybe it's a good time to get the dates out, especially if they still have the seed in them. It's important that we take the seeds out. So I like to count out my dates, and you know, 7 is a good number. I think I say 7 or 8, depending upon the size. And the medjool dates are really, they're quite nice because of the moisture content. 7. You know, I think I'll throw an 8 in, a smaller one here. Yes, that's good. So I have the dates. Okay, all 7. I just lined them up for a moment. I'll set the extras aside, and now I need a sharp knife, because in my case, this is a little larger than I want. So I'll push that back and trade out. So now I will choose a nice sharp knife, and this is just to help to open it up so I can remove the seed. Now, I also like to actually then have it. So with each one, I'm removing, if there's a stem on it, you know, you might want to remove the stem as well. But the seeds in the stem should be removed. And then I have the dates to begin with. Later on, what I will do is I'm going to actually cut them into little pieces. That will facilitate the blending in the food processor. So here again, I'm continuing to open them up. So in the scheme of things, this maybe takes 2 to 3 minutes, you know, not long at all. And it's kind of fun because you get to touch the food and you can smell it, and who knows, maybe you say, oh, I want to have a taste of one of the dates, and you begin the process of looking forward to your meal that is coming along. Also, this particular little dish we're making goes wonderful with the beverages that we did last week. And you can have those like after the meal or even just prior to the meal, maybe. So I have 3 more dates to open up. I chose to do 8. And then once I get these open, then I'm going to go ahead and begin to cut them into little pieces. And then maybe not too small pieces, because once again, the food processor will do the work for me. I just like to cut them up a bit. And for the leftovers, the seeds and the stems, I'll just put over into a container. Maybe you have some sort of receptacle to collect them. And so now, I'll tilt this down for just a moment here. I don't know if you can see, but you probably don't, just listen. Here again, I'm going to cut it into quarters, and then very carefully just make some nice little pieces. As I say, they could be a 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch. It just depends. And the idea here is to facilitate the process of breaking them up when they do get into the processor. And so I continue with this, just being careful not to slice a finger, attentive and enjoying the idea. You can think about the qualities, like the date being sweet and also has a little astringency to it. You can think of the richness of the vitamins and the nutrients inside of it. And the beautiful caramel color, or maybe we should say the date color, since we are working with dates. And so continuing, I'm more than halfway there now. Just a few more. So I'm continuing to cut. I'm going to push my screen back here, so maybe my head will be in it and not just my torso. So it's a nice assemblage of like creating a little mountain of date pieces. And then I'm going to place them, now that I'm finished, into the food processor. I just pick them up, or you can put them into a container if that helps you, and then we'll just put them into the food processor. So we've pitted them. So that's good, and hopefully you can, if a piece landed on the floor, that can also, you can play by the rule of, well, that was the 3-4 second rule, or you could toss it away. So some people probably say, oh, please throw it away. But anyway, you decide. Okay, so next. Now, we have the next ingredients. We have the coconut oil. So this is a good time. I typically like to take my coconut oil. Since the house here, in the wintertime is not so warm, the coconut oil is probably congealed a bit. So I have I use a metal cup. You can use a glass one too. And I will simply use either a knife or a spoon. And I'm going to just select out, what I think to be enough for a tablespoon. And I will put it into my cup, because then I will heat it on the stovetop. So I think that's probably good. And if I have extra, I just put it back into this when it's done, you know? I don't,
I
not,
could have used the last of my coconut oil, but you said ghee would also.
yeah,
work
you
as
can
well,
use
is
ghee
that right?
too. So yes, absolutely, you can use ghee. Since I do this vegan, I don't use ghee, but yes, you can use ghee too. So same amount. And I put onto the piece that I'm giving you, you know, the benefits of the ghee and the coconut oil, because you can see, oh, they're so similar in their. So now the stove, I'm going to turn the stove on. Just a burner, and I put a glass plate down underneath, and then I let that heat, and then it heats the metal measuring cup up. So while that's happening, now I say, oh, okay, well, why don't I do something in preparation while that's heating up? I'm going to scoop out just a little bit of the almond bits that we processed, you know, like an eighth of a cup maybe. You could do a little more, it just depends. The reason for this is we're going to roll these later in it. So you know, don't overdo it, because the rest goes into the mix, but enough that you feel like you're not going to run out. So I typically say an eighth of a cup, but sometimes a quarter cup. I never really end up using a full quarter cup, so that's fine. Just at least do an eighth of a cup. So then I put that in one of my little glass containers. And I'll just set that aside. We have the coconut oil doing its thing, great. We have the orange, and it's a nice organic orange, very lovely. I select it, so it has a little bit of, you know, coloration change on it, which I think is quite nice and smells lovely. So for this, I have a small grater. This is handheld one, and I set it down on my cutting board, and I'm going to begin to shave, you know, just the rind off. So this is important, because this is going to give this amazing citrus scent to these Ojas balls. And you can think of all the lovely sunshine that went into it. So we're basically getting this orange zest. And you can look at the time right now. You know, we've been doing this for basically 15 minutes. So it's like, oh, we're almost done, with the exception of making them. But all the ingredients are coming along. So just keep grinding. I just do the whole orange. You know, some people say, oh, I don't want quite so much. Now, I don't have any rose petal jam, so I'm not going to worry about that. But sometimes I do. And then I put that into. But you could even substitute. Maybe you have rose water and you say, oh, I'll just put a little bit of rose water in. Sometimes I have that. Perhaps I could look. But I think I'll stick with this. I did make a note of the rose as well in the sheet you will receive. So you'll see, oh, I get the benefits of rose. So here we are, just continuing along. Now, the orange being citrus, it has a sourness to it, right? And a sweetness. And we're using the rind, so some might say, well, you know, there's going to be a little bit of bitterness too. You might even, you know, when we get to the honey, we'll find there's the astringency, but also some sweetness as well. So yes, so this is where you get to have a little bit of a workout, right?
Yeah.
So we've spoken about a lot of the tastes. Cardamom, which has its own sweetness, bitterness, and a pungency to it. So we have the first mention of the pungency. You can also think about these ingredients in the sense of warming. Why it is so nice. Well, I like to use this all year round, during the wintertime especially, because there's a lot of warming dimensions to it. So for the fall and the winter, when environment's cooler, at least here in the northern hemisphere, This just makes so much sense. So you can look underneath your grater and you can see the fineness maybe of the zest, the orange zest. And the aroma, I love the aroma. So I'm almost done with my whole orange. If you have helpers, you can assign them to grate the orange. And then they'll be like, that's a lot of work now. Perhaps you get the sense you're building up a little sweat. Yes. All right, so I say, roughly, I think it's a teaspoon, right? Or just the full rind. It depends upon, again, how much. But I like, typically it ends up to be about a teaspoon for an orange. But it could be a little more. So I have that now. And now what I can do is I will just simply add that in with the dates. And you can scoop it up. So you've got the dates in your food processor, and you can do that. And if you feel you need a little bit more rind, just do it. Okay, so I think I've got enough orange. I've covered the basis of the orange. And I'm just scraping off, any residual and putting it in with the dates. So that's nice. And then if I wanted, I could, if you're into the keeping things clean and tidy, you could set it over by your sink or rinse it off. So I have that there, in case I won't need it for anything else for this, but I have it there. Now, I'm going to check. So this little bit, I was just heating up my the oil, and it's ready now, so that's good. So I'm going to just bring it off, turn my burner off, and now I have the oil. Now the thing that I like to do is the coconut oil first before I do the honey, because then the honey won't stick in my measuring spoon. So it's the tablespoon in your case of ghee, and in my case, coconut oil. And again, it just gets mixed in. If you want to add a little extra, it doesn't hurt. Just you have to be careful now. You don't want to make it too over the top. So I have the extra. Now what I'm going to do, because I didn't heat it up so much, I didn't do anything bad, that I'm just going to put it back in with the other. Say that again?
The oil goes in the food processor?
Yes, the oil goes in the food processor, right, exactly. And now we have honey. And so here we want to do a tablespoon of honey. So nice raw honey. And the honey, again, as I said before, is sweet and it's astringent. And it's quite healthy because of its antibacterial abilities. And so one lovely tablespoon of honey. Yes. And then that goes in also with the dates and the orange. And if you used your spoon, like I mentioned, then it's quite easy to get the honey out. It doesn't stick, and you don't have to worry about digging it out. So now we've got that. So then once again, we've got those things all here. If you were adding the rose water or the rose jam, this would be the time to do it. But I think maybe I'll just look and see. I don't think I have it, but you never know. Yeah. Sometimes I discover things that I don't know I have. But anyway, I don't see it. So here we go. So now we're going to, once again, just kind of pulse this to break up the dates and mix all of the stuff together. you should get a nice consistency. It's a little, I like, again, keep it a bit coarse, but you don't want huge chunks. Okay, very nice. Now, once I have this done, what I want to do is to open it up, and I'm going to, now you might want to scrape it down a little bit, push it down, because if some of it sticks at the top, then it can be a bit problematic. So, you could use a spatula or maybe a spoon or a knife, just whatever, just to help get that which moved its way to the top down. And then you could even, mix it up a little bit in there, because we're going to add the nuts in. And the nuts, of course, have already got the spices mixed, right? So we've already set aside our 1/8 cup in a little bowl. Now it's just a matter of take the remainder of the nuts and put them into the food processor. And from here, you can put the lid back on. And this is the final touch where we mix it together nicely. So pulse it, because we don't want to turn it into a goo. I mean, we want it to be sticky and a nice coarse mixture. So I typically do this a few pulses like I just did, and then I like to open it up again and once again scrape down the sides, because if some of it moved its way to the top, it's just kind of nice to scrape down the sides. And then I've done that. So I put the lid back on. And again, excellent. So for instance, if you found that you said, oh, I don't think that it's going to be sticky enough, then you could say, maybe I need to add a little bit more of the coconut oil. So you could certainly do, or the ghee. But mine looks really quite nice. So here again, to be safe, I should unplug it. Now I can remove the center blade. And if you want to have a spoon or something to scrape off, or you can just use your fingers. And I set the blade over into the sink. Now, I'm going to undo this, and I have my bowl that I had my nuts in. So what I will do now is here's when I'm going to get a spoon. And I like to use a soup spoon. Later, I'll show you what. So with the soup spoon, I just scoop it into the bowl. And this is just to help me when I start to form these into the shapes. So I like to put them into a bowl and again, set aside this now back to the sink. Could even put some water in it if you want to clean it out, get it soaking before. And we're right now at, we're almost there with that. Maybe we're right on 25 minutes. So with my soup spoon, I've just kind of put everything into the bowl, mixed it up. And then I'm going to get a nice container out because I'm going to make this quite lovely. Make these. And you can decide on the size. This might actually be a little large. Maybe I do a smaller one. I think I'm going to start with this size. So it's a small Pyrex. I think this is what? A cup? 2 cups? Maybe 2. I don't know.
Probably like 2.5, maybe 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's a nice size one. I've just moved everything aside. Now, with my spoon, and I can decide, I'm going to do this over. So I have next to me, I have my little almond bowl with the flakes that I kept behind. And I'm going to take my spoon and I'm going to kind of form a bite-sized ball. So you might think of like a gumball. That's kind of what we're going for here. So that's why I say 12 to 13. It typically makes 12 to 13. So maybe you think, okay, it's going to be 1 inch in diameter. Okay. And it's like a nice mouth-sized piece. If you used to eat almond roca or something like that, you might think, oh, it's kind of like that, except it's round. So you can see here I have this lovely, I'm holding it between my thumb and my middle finger. I just made form using the spoon. I formed it, and then I'm going to put it into the bowl of nuts, and I roll it around. And that just gets a little coating. And here's where some people say, okay, you know, they could say, well, I could see why this would be powder, more powdery, maybe would make it just a little more. But as I say, I like the texture to be just a little more coarse because I like to feel the graininess when I'm eating it. And then again, I just keep going now. I'm just making, 12 to 13 of these. Maybe you only get 11, maybe you get 14 or 15. It just depends upon how your measuring went and the size that you're making them. But if you use a soup spoon, it kind of gives you a sense, you scoop out a certain amount and then you do it. And then again, back into the dried nuts, circling around and into your little container. So it makes a lovely holiday gift too. If you want to have something homemade and give to someone and they have no allergies to almonds or honey or orange or cardamom.
These look so delicious. I can't wait.
Ginger, I know. And so if you haven't had dinner yet, you can have one. So what I'm going to do when my dinner comes later, I'm going to have one of these to begin with so that I can enjoy the stimulation of the digestive enzymes before. And then I will probably have one or two afterwards. So it's very easy to say, well, I ate the whole batch with someone after baking them. But I limit myself to 2 or 3, So, you do this and you can have, depending if there's 2 of you, you can have them for at least two meals, maybe 3, depending on how many you want to eat. And if you're having a party, then, if you have 4 or 5 people over, then one batch is good enough for everyone, really. So yeah, so we're just doing, see, I've done 4 already. So right now, we've got to that roughly that time frame, but we spent a little more talking and we're doing things. So at the end of the day, if you're just very focused in doing this, that 25 minutes is really a nice measure. And you can say, oh, maybe it takes 30.
I'm probably going to eat the whole batch tonight.
Yes, see? Exactly. Well, it'll boost your chi and ojas significantly. You just have to be careful too, because there is, sweetness to it. So you don't want to overstimulate and then have a sugar, but it's very well balanced with all of those tastes. So you're building your protective defenses with these, and in a sense you're helping to hydrate and nourish all of the tissues and the organs, aid in your digestion, help to clear out the lungs.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've made, let's see, 2, 4, 6 so far. So I'm nicely there. Maybe I get more out of this batch. That would be exciting. Then I can think I have more to have with more meals. You might think about having that, the turmeric ginger beverage later as well with cardamom, or who knows, anything else you want to mix in with it. And so sometimes too, you might find along the way you want to wash your fingers off just because they get a little sticky and then stuff starts to stick to them. So, so it can help to just to moisten them up, which I think I'm going to do. Or you want to just lick them and then wash them off, which is another thing. So yeah, so I've just done that. I moistened them up a bit, cleaned them off. Now I go back to finishing up. So here again, I'm on my number 8. And it's a little easier with a little moist hands. And that's why too, if you have a towel like I tend to have with me, that I can just sometimes keep that moist as well, a part of it, so I can use it. Clean towel is important. Yes. So did you finish?
I finished. Yeah, I got.
Oh my gosh, you're faster making them than me.
I finished.
It's kind of like being back, when you were younger and maybe playing with dough or something, Play-Doh or the mud. Probably didn't eat the mud.
These look like almond roca.
Yes, exactly, except much healthier for you. So depending upon the container you put in, sometimes I like to get, if I'm giving them as gifts, those little metal containers that they make, and they'll fit just perfectly, 12 to 13. You can put a little bit of wax paper in it and then shape these up and put them inside. At the very end, and I'm almost done, I think I can maybe make 2 more. They'll be small bites. Maybe I just make 1 and then I finish it myself. So here I just finishing this last one, shaping it up. Make it a little bigger because I still have a little left over. So I might have ended up with only 11 in my batch. How many did you make?
I made 11.
Oh yeah, so there we go. So someone can fight over the odd one.
That's all right.
All right, so then if you have leftover, so this is one of the things, once you finish this, so sometimes I will take the finished, the finished nuts, and I just sprinkle them on top if I have a nice little bowl or something, because a little bit of the residual will stick, but it's also just adds kind of some intrigue, especially if you're making a gift for someone. So you can do that, and you don't have to use it all, but some of it is nice. I'm going to wash my hands one more time. Now, what I really like to do, and I cook a lot and use flowers, but edible flowers are lovely.
Ooh.
So I take the edible flowers out, and in this case, I'm going to choose, I have a couple of nice marigolds. So I'm going to take 2 marigolds, one really yellow and one orange. I'll rinse them off just quick, very briskly. They're clean, but I rinse them anyway. So I take the stem of the marigold and I cut it. And then what happens is I can open up the flower and then it just blossoms like this. And then I can sprinkle it on top. I'll show you in a moment. And it creates this beautiful, festive little dish. And again, if you had them all set out. So I don't know how well that's going to be seen, but can you see it?
Yep.
Sort of. Anyway, the flowers are there and they just add quite. So you could use snapdragons, but any edible flowers would work lovely. So again, that's to accompany it. So that's this week's dish. And you can just imagine each time you take a taste that you can think, oh, the ojas is building, the blood is being enriched, the chi is being enhanced. And you'll get the piece in your email inbox shortly. So enjoy.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Thank you and have a lovely rest of the night.
All right. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.